The large load of pallets was unceremoniously dumped on the line when a truck driven by a Queensland man toppled onto its side on the level crossing. Cessnock Volunteer Rescue Squad was called to the scene, but the driver escaped without injury. He told police his truck had become unbalanced when the load shifted as he rounded the curve before the crossing. Even after the truck was righted, both road and rail traffic were delayed while the scattered pallets were reloaded onto a semi-trailer.
Jester Royale qualified for the $2 million event with a brilliant win in last Tuesday's Brambles Classic at Kembla Grange, but John Hawkins had to find a late entry fee of $75,000 for Jester Royale to have a crack at fame and fortune, something that surprised trainer Max Lees.
I was really, yeah, because he didn't give any inclination he was going to run it because, yeah, it was a lot of money for anyone to pay up, and I didn't pressure him at all. I didn't say anything to him about it, you know, so it was up to him.
After running second to Torres in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Classic at Broadmeadow last month, and then the win in Wollongong, the Pretty Grey became a slipper prospect, and Lees was extremely happy with the way she pulled up.
Very good. I haven't done a lot with her since she raced. You know, she's only been working pace work. I'm going to gallop her in the morning. But she's done quite well. She's a good doing filly, and she's very fit at the moment, and she's a filly that you can give a bit of work to because she's such a good doer.
But one major factor as to her chances will be tomorrow's barrier draw in Sydney's Martin Place.
If you draw bad in the Golden Slipper, you haven't got much hope, really, and I just hope she draws inside 10 because it is hard. It's a very, they go flat strap all the way, and if she draws a good barrier, well, she's going to be handy to the lead all the way.
The unit is funded from a $560,000 grant from the Motor Accidents Authority of New South Wales. Today, the breakthroughs in pain relief was explained to New South Wales Attorney-General John Dowd.
The assessment and research that will go on here will be a new stage in technology to enable assessment of pain, the localising of the treatment of pain, and for some people who've lived with terrible headaches and other pain because of some neck injury in the past will in fact be treated and be able to go on with a normal life.
Bearing testimony to the revolutionary painkilling injections and operation is whiplash sufferer Michael McCleary.
It's helped my wife, the family, it's helped everybody, and without it I probably wouldn't be here now, I don't think.
The unit is linked to Newcastle University's Faculty of Medicine and will use new diagnostic techniques developed there. So successful is the treatment that long waiting lists are expected. It is also anticipated that many millions of dollars will be saved to taxpayers each year through a reduction in legal proceedings resulting from accident injuries. For 20-year-old self-employed welder Danny Fletcher, winning was just following in the family footsteps.
My uncle went in it a few years back. He won the Illawarra region and went on to the Nationals in Adelaide, come third. So when he's done that, I thought, well, it's good enough for me to go in and I'll do the same.
But he went one better, becoming the best young welder in Australia. Now his talent, fostered as an apprentice boilermaker with the Hunter Valley Training Company, will take him to Europe in June to compete in the International Skill Olympics. And for 22-year-old fluid-powered tradesman John O'Brien, winning gold was a dream come true.
I just couldn't believe it. I was just so excited that I'd actually done it and it was number one.
It was the first time his trade was contested nationally, and as yet it's not recognised as an international category. Nevertheless, John believes it will ensure his future security.
I don't think I'll ever have any problem if I ever need a job or anything.
Kevin Anthony Veach strangled his younger sister Teresa Ann in the family home in May last year, then dumped her body in the boot of a car in nearby bush. A young mother has spoke for the first time of her remarkable survival after being stranded in the Australian outback. 4 members of the party of 12 were found dead after being lost for days. Kiwi import John Schuster has finally earned himself a place in the Knights' first grade team. Schuster will run on from the ring for this weekend's clash with Penrith. And
A simple squabble played out over the garden fence can cost thousands when it's replayed across a courtroom. According to a committee made up from the Hunter Community Forum, the Working Women's Centre and neighbourhood groups, a lengthy court case can be avoided. Already community justice centres exist in Sydney, and the demand for mediators to help resolve conflicts is rapidly growing, and that includes requests from the Hunter.
In a community of this size, I would expect that over a period of, after a couple of years of establishment of a community justice centre, we would very clearly demonstrate the need to the tune of around about 1,000 disputes a year being handled by the centre.
Although a centre has been approved for Newcastle, the necessary funds, around $120,000 to set up, with operating costs of around $200,000 a year, are not forthcoming from the government. But according to Justice Centre's proponents, that money would quickly be recouped.
When a dispute is resolved through mediation, it's unlikely to reoccur, so the police don't have to go back to the same neighbourhood week after week or month after month, trying to sort out the problems between the neighbours. In another area, in the area of the effects of violence, of course, if you can resolve a dispute before it gets violent, you're actually saving the health budget quite a lot as well.
So far, the directors of Coal and Allied have rejected CRA's bid because they believe the price, reported to be about $437 million, undervalues the company. It is advising shareholders to retain their shares until a board decision on an independent valuation. Already, CRA has a 14.4% stake in Coal and Allied and is now in the market to increase that to 20% when they can issue a Part A document under the Takeover Code. Coal and Allied is Australia's third largest producer of coal and last year mined more than 11 million tonnes. It is a major shareholder in Port Waratah Coal Services, which owns both the coal loaders in Newcastle. Coal and Allied's other Hunter interests include the Hunter Valley Mine at Ravensworth and the Mount Thorley Open Cut near Singleton, as well as the Chain Valley, Moonee and Wallara collieries to the south of Newcastle.
"18 months after the Newcastle disaster, the NRMA is still receiving 50 new earthquake damage claims every week. Naturally, they're beginning to wonder why.
Yes, there is an element of suspicion there. As late as last week, we did refer a claimant to the New South Wales Police Department, who have prosecuted that person. We believe there's a lot more claims coming in that are not genuine earthquake claims.
To sift the genuine cases from the less plausible ones, the NRMA is issuing a statutory declaration that claimants must sign with a witness. It asks questions like when the damage was first noticed and why it's taken so long to lodge the claim. The GIO has gone one step further and will not consider any new claims unless the property owner is prepared to engage a structural engineer at cost to confirm earthquake damage. Clearly, many buildings have suffered damage that isn't earthquake related over the past year and a half. Insurers believe that even the recent dry spell may have caused some ground movement. What they believe is that some householders aren't certain what caused the cracks and have decided to take a punt on an earthquake damage claim.
There are an element of people out there that are just trying insurance companies on for what they can get out of them. But I might also add there's an element of people out there that are really making genuine claims, and that's the business that we're in, of paying genuine claims.
The unit's been operating for over 10 years, funded by public donations. Its nursing staff and officers are provided by Wallsend Hospital. A shadow was cast over the future of the unit when the Hunter Area Health Service, in a letter to the Lions Club of Newcastle, advised that any attempts to raise funds for major refurbishment or equipping of the melanoma unit may be ill-advised because the complicated treatments of melanoma may be centralised at the Mater Hospital. Chief Executive Officer of the Hunter Area Health Service today confirmed that some services will be moved to the Mater, but the Wallsend unit's reception, processing and some surgical roles will be retained.
Because the unit has been successful in the provision of services at Wallsend, I will recommend that that division of sophisticated treatments to the Mater and general treatments to Wallsend, as well as the clinic at Wallsend, be the way to go. Therefore, our advices to the various funding authorities can be now, there certainly will be a surety of placing of the melanoma unit in some of its aspects at Wallsend. Therefore, go out and fundraise.
And that fundraising is desperately needed. The centre will be moved out of its present cramped rooms into the nearby booth wing of the Wallsend Hospital, which will need a major renovation. Alison Peters, NBN News.
This site off Egret Street, Kooragang Island, is where Cleanaway is most likely to build the liquid waste treatment facility. Dr Howard Bridgman and Philip O'Neill of Newcastle University were commissioned last year by the Bramble-owned company to find a site suitable for the facility, which will treat around 40,000 tonnes of liquid waste each year. By using the method of elimination, this site came out on top.
It's a large, flat, level site. There are no slopes or hills here. There is minimal impact or interaction with surrounding industries. It's just a very generally good site.
Of primary attraction was its ease of access and proximity to Mayfield, where 80% of the region's industrial liquid waste is generated.
Australia generally has an appalling record of safety on the roads. We would be very concerned, for example, if the transportation was by truck and went for long distances from the sources of waste material and ended up having accidents along the road because of poor driving by various individuals, which would dump untreated waste material into the environment.
Last year, Cleanaway clashed with residents when Mayfield was leaked as a preferred site. Dr Bridgman is confident this new site is far enough away from residential areas.
This site is outside the 2-kilometre buffer zone, which is our one of our level 3 criterion, from any of the surrounding housing areas, including Stockton, Tighes Hill and Mayfield.
With no law to specify how far the plant should be from houses, Dr Bridgman and Mr O'Neill worked on a 1-kilometre buffer zone throughout the study. A similar distance was also set from water catchment areas.
We do not have a problem with water catchment areas. One of the reasons we eliminated Port Stephens entirely at the end of level 1 was because Port Stephens is the major water catchment zone for the whole Lower Hunter region. So there was a very large tract of land in Port Stephens that was eliminated for that particular reason. But we do not have such problems down here.
It appears Cleanaway is leaving nothing to chance. According to Dr Bridgman, this is the most detailed site study for a heavy industry ever undertaken in Australia. During the last 6 months, hundreds of sites in Newcastle, the Hunter Valley and Port Stephens have been considered. If Kooragang Island is later found by Cleanaway to be unsuitable, a site in the Lake Macquarie area is next on the list.
Well, the next site in our ranking system is a site between the Awaba State Mine and Araring Power Station in the western part of Lake Macquarie City Council area. It is a site that is owned, I believe, by state government, and it is a coal haulage road, and there may be incompatibility along that road with the major coal trucks going between the mine and Araring Power Station.
Cleanaway will prepare a detailed environmental impact statement on the Kooragang site. A development application should be lodged with Council within the next few months. Each year, the Hunter region generates around 40 million litres of liquid waste that is either stored or disposed of illegally. It represents a significant environmental problem. Cleanaway believes it can help by building a state-of-the-art recycling and treatment facility. Last night, the Bramble-owned company presented its ideas and site selection to Newcastle Council. In a detailed site study, Dr Howard Bridgman of Newcastle University spent 6 months investigating scores of sites in Newcastle, the Hunter Valley, Port Stephens and Lake Macquarie before finally settling on this public works-owned land in Egret Street, Kooragang Island. Cleanaway says the plant will employ the latest technology to break down and treat the region's hazardous material.
For a number of streams, we'll be extracting the recyclable materials in case of oils or fatty acids that can be resold, and the basic result of it will be a salty type water which will be able to be discharged to the sewer. There will be some solid material that will be going through a process of cementation, we call it, and that will be sent to landfill.
Plans to build a high-temperature waste incinerator at the facility have been deferred by the company.
The State Pollution Control Commission are currently reviewing their emission standards, and with uncertainty of standards and therefore the technology and equipment and the monitoring and the track record which the community have told us about that is essential for this type of equipment, we aren't in a position to proceed with an incinerator.
But this is no comfort for residents of Mayfield and Stockton. Although they realise it's necessary to treat hazardous waste, they don't want the facility in their backyard.
That a hazardous waste facility at the distances you're talking about tonight is certainly not on for the residents of Mayfield, I suspect not for Stockton, and if the people of Newcastle have got any sense, for nowhere in the area.
They don't want anything more on Kooragang. We have a lot of medical problems in Stockton already due to things that are coming across in the air.
The company has begun preparing a draft environmental impact statement which should be ready for public comment by the middle of next month. It's hoped a development application will be lodged with Council shortly after, and if approval is given, the plant should be up and running within 18 months. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The badly decomposing body of Michael John Swazak was discovered in bush off the Pacific Highway north of Raymond Terrace early last year. The cause of death was never established. Police learned that the 17-year-old was last seen alive at a New Year's Eve party at the Islington Bowling Club. Later in the year, homicide detectives charged 2 men in connection with the death. Gary Leonard Gerard and Kelvin Brian Lamb were charged in Gosford Court with manslaughter and unlawfully disposing of a body. On March 12, Director of Public Prosecutions Reg Blanche dropped the charges, saying the evidence assembled so far was insufficient to justify prosecution. He said the decision to withdraw the charges still allowed police to carry out further investigations. In the meantime, it's expected that the matter will be handed back to the coroner for an inquest at a date yet to be determined.
And US Army ground troops clashing with enemy forces. It's the first major conflict involving the Allies since the official end of hostilities. President Bush has warned he'll keep using that force if Saddam Hussein breaks the peace agreement again. Back home, opposition leader John Hewson is under attack after promising a coalition government would use the army if there was any resistance to industrial reform on the waterfront. The threat has provoked an angry response from the government, accusing Dr Hewson of union bashing. And Dr Hewson met with angry Victorian farmers last night. 2,000 graziers, many members of the Liberal Party, gathered to tell Hewson they think his party is unsympathetic to their plight. The meeting called on the government to take over the funding of the huge
Cessnock Council believes Sunday's clean-up will be the biggest community effort ever in the area, with thousands of people expected to take part. A recent phone-in identified 20 black spots which need to be tackled. One of those is this illegal dump site on Old Maitland Road. Although the Cessnock dump is just 1 kilometre away, people insist on dumping their refuse irresponsibly.
They're very hard to work out. We don't place a charge on our dumps. It's free to come along any time during the week or on the weekend and dump whatever refuse you have, but people aren't using them.
Council has gone all out for this Sunday's clean-up, producing T-shirts, stickers and badges, encouraging people to help clean up the coalfields.
We're expecting thousands of people, including children, to turn up and work from 8 a.m. right through to 4 p.m. at least. We've had scores of phone calls. The schools, the organisations, the individuals are extremely enthusiastic.
In Newcastle, 3 areas have been targeted: Throsby Creek, Stockton Beach and Foreshore and Glenrock State Recreation Area, while in Lake Macquarie the slogan for the campaign is "Get it done in 91", and once again the lake and foreshore are the focus. Last year truckloads of rubbish were carted away, and while it's hoped the amount of refuse will be less, the participation rate should be just as great.
A classic skating move, but don't be fooled. There's no ice to be seen. Alison Mackay glides just as gracefully on wheels.
Well, I started back in 1984 and with friends, and I've stayed in it because I enjoyed it.
Some of that enjoyment will be put on hold come Easter, when she puts her talent on the line against the finest young figure skaters in Australasia. It will be a big test for the 15-year-old, and she's not about to make any rash predictions.
There's some tough competition from New Zealand, I think, because they're all first in New Zealand, and the ones from South Australia and Victoria, I know that they're pretty good because I skated against them at Nationals.
Can you win though?
I don't know.
But the fact she's a Novocastrian will work in her favour. She spent years skating alongside some of the state's best under the critical eye of coach Janine Dunn.
It's one of the strongest clubs, figure artistic skating in New South Wales, and given that strength and the competition she has here in this club to train with, I'm sure she'll go really well.